Students often have a hard time rounding numbers off to the nearest whole number, the nearest tenth, the nearest hundredth, whatever. So I want you to take notes on this. Write down what I'm writing down so that you'll have it in your notes. If I ask you to round this number to the nearest tenth, I want you to look at this number. Because 7 is the nearest tenth. But in order to round it off, I have to look at the number that comes just after that number. I don't care about this number, by the way. All right, so I look at that number. If that number is 5 or more, I take that to an 8. If it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, it stays the same. So if I were to round 46.73 to the nearest tenth, the answer would be 46.7. All right, what if I would say 46.7521? It doesn't matter. I can have a million numbers after this. But I say round it to the nearest tenth. Again, this is the 10th place, but I have to look at the hundredths place to round it off to the 10th. All right, this is a 5. Therefore, this number has to go up to an 8, so it will be 46.8. All right? What if I want to take a number, let's say 35.123, and I want to round it off to the nearest hundredth. TH. I have to look at 1, 2, 3. I have to look at the third place because the third place is thousandths. I have to look at the thousandths place to round it off to the nearest hundredth. Now, because this is less than 5, then this just will stay the same. So the answer will be 35.12. The correct way of reading that is 35 and 12 hundredths. By the way, this is 46 and 8 tenths. That's how we read it. All right, how about if I would say 38.7952, and I ask you to round it off to the nearest tenth. Well, again, you're going to look at the hundredth place. To the nearest tenth, this is a 5 or more. This will make this go up to an 8, so that will equal 38.8. Let me show you something. If this number had been, let's say, 13.97, and I said round this off to the nearest tenth, well, you'd look at this number, and this number is 5 or more. Therefore, that makes that go up to a 10, which makes this whole thing go up to 14. But I have to write it like this. I have to say, if you say 14, in a lot of cases, they'll mark that wrong. You have to say 14.0. 14 and no tenths. That's how you round that off. Let me show you just really quickly a couple more. If I say 56.73 and I ask you to round that off to the nearest 10, well, the nearest, this is 1's place, this is 10's place. If I ask you to round it off to the nearest 10's, you're going to look at this number. You're not going to worry about this, actually. This is 5 or more. That's going to make that go up to 6. So the nearest 10's, that will be 60. Okay. Same thing with if I had 135, and I ask you to round this off to the nearest hundred. Well, it's 35. So this is less than 50, right? So it would be just 100. If I had 155 and I asked you to round it off to the nearest 100, then it would be 200, because the 55 makes that go up to a 2.